Welcome to the weekly Parsha Shir, sponsored by the UJA in memory of the Yidden murdered on Simchas Torah, for the merit of the soldiers, all of the Jewish people in Israel and around the world, for the immediate coming of Mashiach, when we'll have true world peace. May that be speedily. We are holding the Parsha of Re'eh, C. The Parsha of Re'eh is in the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, thanks. That is the book that Moses taught shortly before he passed away, the last month, little more than the last month of his life in this world, where he reviewed many of the laws and gave much attention to guiding the Jewish people in the importance of fulfilling God's commandments and the importance of not transgressing, not going against God's commandments. So you have many of the Parshios, many of the Torah portions in this book of Deuteronomy actually don't teach us any laws. It's just guidance about the beauty and about the importance and the necessity of connecting to God, which the way we connect to God is through fulfilling His instructions and not going against His instructions. Correct. Now, it happens to be that the book of Deuteronomy is learned at the end of the year, which is shortly before the high holidays. And specifically, the month of return that was in the title, that's the month of Elul. Elul is the last Jewish month of the year, the month right before Rosh Hashanah, which this is a month that is dedicated to prepare for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The high holidays is an extremely powerful time. We see that people who are totally non-observant, Yom Kippur is a different story.
Yes.
They'll come to shul. Today, maybe especially in the older generation,
all these people flooding in.
correct, people that don't step into shul the whole year.
Why? On Yom Kippur.
Correct. Why? It's a powerful, powerful day. The neshama wakes up. The Jewish soul is aroused. There's just an inner call that just calls them to shul that day. Now, why doesn't this call take effect on the rest of the year? If it's such a powerful experience, such a powerful godly revelation taking place on that day, how is it that the day after Yom Kippur they go back to regular mundane life, forgetting about what happened? The answer is they didn't prepare for it. If we were to prepare for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, it would be a different story. We would be able to hold on to that godly revelation and godly experience and not let it slip away from us. God, the way He operates, the way He created the world, the way He created the channel of connection with us and Him, is sort of, if we can use this example, He throws to us balls of revelations, and we have a very, very bouncy body. If we don't take a tight grip on it, it slips out of our hand, and we can totally forget that it ever came to us. So we were holding on to that ball for a few seconds or a few hours, and it was an intense experience. But it disappears. If we don't make sure to take grip of it, it totally leaves us without any imprint. This month, the month of Elul, is the month that's dedicated to prepare for the high holidays in order to be able to keep what God gives us during the high holidays and the 10 days in between. This is the month that will prepare us for it. This week is the week that blesses the new month. The new month is going to be starting on Sunday, actually.
Oh, wow.
Sunday and Monday. So Shabbos, Shabbos is going to be the 29th of the month. Sunday is already Rosh Chodesh. The Shabbos before the new month, there's a special prayer where we bless the upcoming month. Shabbos Mevarchim, It means the Shabbos of blessing. That's the Shabbos that we bless the upcoming month, the new month. This week we're blessing the month of Elul, which is the month of return. The week of Re'eh, that's this week, Shabbos Parsha Re'eh, that's what's going to be taking place in Shul during davening between Shachris and Musaf towards the end of prayer. We're going to be making the special prayer, the special blessing for the new month. Now, in honor of the new month, coming the month of return, we're going to be talking about the concept of return, which our Parsha talks about the importance of fulfilling the mitzvahs and making sure not to transgress. We have a famous story in our Parsha. The Torah tells us, Moses tells the Jewish people, see that I am placing in front of you blessing and the opposite of blessing. The blessing is when you will listen to God's word. The opposite is if we'll go astray and turn off from God's way. And then he tells them, when you cross the Jordan, when you enter into the land, there's going to be two mountains over there. There's going to be a mountain of blessing and a mountain of the opposite of blessing, and a whole interesting description how there's going to be blessing for when a person goes in God's ways, there's blessing. Now, what does that mean, blessing and the opposite of blessing? Blessing means a connection to God. The opposite of blessing, what's the worst curse? When a person is disconnected from God. What's the curse of transgressing God's word? Not a curse of bad things are going to happen that may happen as a result, but that's not what it's about. The curse, the biggest curse of a sin is that it distances us from God. It pushes us away from God. Now, the truth is, we're never pushed away from God. Impossible for us to be pushed away from God. Why? Because God is everywhere. Can't be pushed away from God. The question is, how much do we realize God's reality? The more we do what God wants, the more we're in touch with that reality. And the more we don't listen to God, the more we lose touch. But the reality remains that God is always with us. And that's why we can have a very easy way to return. So we're going to be talking about the concept of tshuva. We just had in Tanya, we learned the letter of return. There's a long letter, a letter of 12 chapters, where the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Tanya, explains the concept of return. And he explains over there that return means to regret the fact that we sinned and to decide that we want to come back home and we want to change our ways. That is the definition of return. Now we all know, return, it's a tattoo and it's difficult and there's so many things that we need to do in order to get back on track. It's impossible. The Alter Rebbe clarifies. He says, I want to deal with this very misconception. The misconception that for return, you need to break your body and you need to be shattered into pieces. No. Tshuva means one thing. Turning the direction back on track. That means being a Rasha, sinning means traveling in the direction that is going away from God. Tshuva means making that return. Tshuva means return, making that turn towards God, facing God, and focusing on God. That is the meaning of tshuva. That is the only meaning of return. A story which will clarify this concept. There was in Tsarist Russia, I think it was Tsar Nikolai. I think it was him, maybe it was a different Tsar. He had a hobby. He was very, very curious and eager to know what his people thought of him. how his citizens and how his soldiers were operating. For that reason, he would often, I think it's known in history books, I think it's brought down, that he would often dress in civilian clothing, and go to where the people were to get a first-hand impression of what was going on.
I've heard this tale. It was written 1,000 years ago. The Caliph al-Rashid would go among his people.
So this is about the Tsar from 300 years ago. Probably many leaders, probably was a thing. Was a thing that kings, I mean, not everyone, but every other one.
Ones.
They wanted to observe what was going on. So there was at one of these incidents, and I don't know how often he did it, he came to visit a base in very sudden notice. And the soldiers, they're acting as if they're on base. They weren't ready for the Tsar to show up. And a lot of them were in the bar, drunk. News came.
Show up in the bar.
News came. The Tsar is coming. Everyone falls in panic, and they start running towards the base. But many of them didn't make it to the base. They fell along the way. The Tsar came, showed up, and he picked on a guy who was almost at base, laying on the floor, almost at base. He told the commander to beat him, wake him up and treat him aggressively for his big sin, that he wasn't ready, on guard when the Tsar showed up. The soldier is waking up, getting sober, together with his blood coming out, and he's totally confused. He looks behind him towards the bar. There's a bunch of soldiers, a lot closer to the bar. He's a few steps away from base. He just can't figure it out, and he turns to the Tsar. He says, "Tell me, why am I being the one attacked? Look at all those soldiers that barely made it out of the bar. I almost made it into base, and you're picking on me?" The Tsar said, "I don't care where you fell. That's not what bothered me. What bothered me was where your head, to which direction was your head leading? All of those soldiers that fell near the bar further from base, their head fell towards the base. You collapsed right near base, but your head is towards the bar." Tshuva is where are we heading? The decision that we want to do the right thing. That is tshuva. Now the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain the fact that we find that tshuva, return, is associated with fasts is a true concept. Very true concept. It's brought in holy books. But that's not the definition of return. The definition of return is that turn that we make to return. So to understand what is the role of fasts, what are the steps of the return, that's what we want to talk about today. So, where do fasts come into role? In the role of tshuva, return. To understand that, we have to realize, what does a sin do? And the answer is, when we sin, it does more than one thing. There are three things that a sin does. The first is the most important and most significant thing. When we sin, we are telling God, we are not interested in you. We are removing the yoke of heaven from upon us. We're throwing off the yoke of heaven. Any sin we do, can be a tiny one, it can be a big one, it's all the same idea. What is the idea of sin? We're removing the yoke of heaven.
Yoke is such an art scroll word, by the way.
So the reason why we use the yoke is because that's the example of when you have an animal, when you want to get it to work, you have a yoke on its neck to keep its head down, to realize that he has an assignment he needs to finish.
I don't think that's called a yoke.
No, that's how I was. That's what we mean.
It's a plain English.
So
No, I know
We're telling them
it means
to take off.
responsibility.
oil,
Telling God to take a
okay,
hike.
okay, responsibility with the world. We're taking off the responsibility we have towards God, and we're telling God, no more. I'm done with you. Like Eliezer is saying, I'm going for a hike. I'm taking a break. Every avera, every sin doesn't make a difference how big, how small. That is what a sin essentially. That is the most essential reality that the avera, that the sin does. It's the announcement, the decision that we are taking off the godly responsibility we have. That is aspect one. Then there's another aspect of sin. When we sin, we know there are 248 positive commandments, do commandments, put on tefillin, eat kosher. There are 365 commandments that are don't do's. Don't eat pork, don't desecrate Shabbos, don't hurt, don't kill, and etc. Why are there 248 and 365? So whoever learned, what is it called? About the body, the limbs of the body. What is that wisdom called? Slipping my mind. The science of the body.
Physiology, anatomy, physiology.
Anatomy. There's another one that I'm looking for. But either way, how many body parts does the person have? 248. How many arteries and veins does the person have?
365.
Very good. Why? Every mitzvah, every commandment is connected to a particular part of the body. And when we do that commandment, we enhance that part of the body. And when we transgress that commandment, we blemish that part of the body. That's the second element. So the first element is the fact that we removed God's yoke from upon us. The second element is we caused a certain blemish. So besides for the direction, the wrong turn that we made, we also caused a particular damage. We ruined a part of the body. The third element is besides for ruining that particular part, blemishing that particular part of the body, again the spiritual body.
When did we remove the yoke?
If by any time we go against God's word, we're removing the responsibility. We're pushing away the responsibility we have. The third element is the general weakness that you cause to the body. When a person hurts his hand, let's say, so his hand is hurt. But besides for his hand getting hurt, he also causes a general weakness to the entire body. Those are the three elements, the three damages, three parts of sin. Now, to fix we're going to finish this point, then we'll take some questions. To fix the first problem is a very simple fix. To retake the yoke of God, to retake the responsibility, to acknowledge that it was wrong that we removed that responsibility, and tell God, from today on, I'm not doing anything wrong again. I am turning around towards you. I'm returning to accepting exactly. It's a matter of acceptance. It doesn't take any time. It's a one moment decision. Now, when it comes to fixing the blemish, that is something that is more of a process. But again, the element of return is the acceptance. The next step is working on the blemish and fixing it. And then it's not just enough to fix that particular, let's say tefillin, for example. Tefillin is a mitzvah that is associated with the hand. So if a person didn't put on tefillin, by accepting to wear tefillin, so he's fixing the hand.
But it's opposite the heart. It's more interesting. Yeah.
So it's correct. It could be connected to the heart, to the hand. I'm just using that as an example. And then you have not just fixing the hand, because again, if a person blemishes his hand, it affects the entire body to a certain extent. And that's why he has to not just work on the hand, he also has to work on the entire body, which that is already of a larger piece of work. So again, the first and most important step is the acceptance. The second step is working on the problem. And the third step is working as the problem as a whole, like holistic medicine, not just focusing on the particular weakness, not just taking medication for the particular problem. Rather, you also have to bring the body back to itself.
Like a balance.
Correct. These are the three elements. Before we take questions, I'm just going to bring in one more point, and which is going to open the discussion that we're going to focus on. This is a little more background. When a person sins, the main repair is by the return to acceptance. Now, where does fasting come into the picture? Fasting comes into the picture when we want to fix the blemish. That's where the idea of fasting comes in. Now, before we're going to continue talking about fasting, I want to clarify that today we substitute fasting with charity. Was charity beside for giving money? Correct. Besides for giving money, it's also the idea of a lot of times it's explained charity can be fulfilled in a spiritual way, sharing positivity and good with other people. Today we don't do the fasts and actually not eating. The fasts are redeemed by praying and giving tzedakah.
But by the way, right? That you could also have in mind that every hour that you're not eating,
That could be yeah. So, but we're going to talk about fasts the way it's written, even though again today we don't do the actual fasts; they're redeemed. So, to fix the blemish, the acceptance is not enough. For that, we need to fast. How much do you need to fast? So every mitzvah has a different amount of fasts.
Is there a time
There
that
is-
Mondays and Thursdays or Fridays?
Some people would fast, yeah. But in general, every mitzvah has a different amount of fasts. What happens if a person sins more than one time? How many times does he have to fast? Let's say, this is not real numbers. Let's say if a person worked on Saturday and he wasn't, that's a wrongdoing. Let's say he would need to fast 10 times. Let's say a person desecrated Shabbos for 10 times. How many times does he need to fast? Who knows math?
He need,
Huh?
he need,
100? No.
he need not.
Wait, was it just a Shabbos or was stuff done on Shabbos in addition?
Let's say he did he violated Shabbos. One violation that he did for 10 times. One cigarette every Shabbos for 10 Shabbos. First of all, we want to clarify
That's
the
self-control. Can I read this guy?
1 second. We want to clarify the return for this is when a person does this in a conscious way. In a very if a person grew up non-religious, so we're not going to count all of the times. Maybe he has to do one general correction. Here we're talking about when a person was aware of what he was doing. That's it's general clarification. But if a person, let's say, he did one cigarette for 10 weeks, how many times does he need to fast? 10 times?
No.
Or 10 times 10 times 10 would be 100. So the truth is,
When I was a kid, I was on the Shabbaton, and we were.
What is that?
Shabbaton when like all these little kids.
Upstate? This was? What was it?
No, just like little kids. We were going on a Shabbaton near our school. All the Jewish families decided to take us in for a weekend. So we went back to school. We were in this classroom, and one of the kids wasn't religious, so he comes in, turns on the light, and so he shuts the light, and then he turns it back on again.
okay. Let's remain focused. This is a kid is a different story. A kid is not responsible in general. But how many times do you need to fast? So there's 3 different approaches. One approach says, even if you sin 10 times, now you're ready to return. So you fast one set of 10. Another approach says, no. 10 cigarettes, 10 different Saturdays. That's 10 times 10. And then there's a middle approach that says 3 times, 30 fasts. What's behind this? The answer is when a person sins, causes a blemish that needs to be corrected, let's say tefillin, let's say, connected to the hand, there is a threefold effect that the sin does. Besides for the three things that we spoke about before, which is taking off the yoke of heaven, ruining, blemishing that particular part of the body and blemishing the whole body, even in the blemish of the actual hand, let's say, for example, there's three aspects to it, that's what we're going to explain with an example that the Alter Rebbe brings in Tanya, and we're going to finish off with that idea. That's an idea which will give clarity to this concept. Anyone wants to ask brief questions before we continue? David.
The phrase casting off the yoke of heaven, I think it's better phrased negating the covenant that you have.
Okay, we could discuss it. I'm not sure.
No, I
Suggesting.
say, personal sensitivity.
Okay.
Let us say I'm supporting a family. You know how they used to say, if you don't come in on Sunday, you don't work here on Monday? Remember that? If you have to provide and you have to work, you're being punished because of the circumstances of your life. So instead of compassion, you're also getting discipline for fasting.
It's a broad question. That's not something we can deal with
Today.
on one leg.
Okay. But it's
But
a
yeah,
thought.
absolutely. We'll talk about that, God willing.
So, Rabbi said that when you commit a sin, it affects you physically, right? Does it also affect you mentally?
I said more spiritually. Also, physically is a deeper concept. I'm more talking about spiritually.
Right, what about mentally?
We're focusing on spiritually now.
But they're all connected. You can't
Correct.
say-
They are all connected, right? But I'm not. That's again, each little concept here has a sea of information.
Right, but when you do a sin, don't you like do some calculations in your head, like you weigh the good, the bad, and you decide, which one you want to do. Do I want to, do it,
Circumstances
or do I
don't
wanna
allow
do
that.
it? And you make a decision, a logical decision in your head on what to do.
No.
It's like David,
Here we go.
when he went after Bathsheba, he had a decision to make,
So
and he made it. Okay,
Thank goodness he did.
so this is
he
that's
went after a married man's wife.
we're here we're talking about the
Table to top.
spiritual. Here we're talking about the spiritual blemish that a sin does. This is what we're talking about today. There's again more to it. Now, what's behind this idea of one set of fasts, 3 or as many times as you sin? So the example that's brought in the Tanya is, which it will address a little your question, David, not fully, but we'll touch on it a little. The example that's brought in Tanya, he says, for example, if a person causes sperm to leave his body in vain, that's the example that he chooses in Tanya.
In vain.
In vain. That's the example he uses in Tanya. Now, why does he use that example? This is he doesn't discuss it. He just uses this example. Do you have to, the amount of fasts, whatever amount it is, do you have to do 1 time, 3 times, or as many times as it happens? Why does he use this example? Because this example clarifies very clearly what a sin does. And from here we can take it to every sin, whether it's talking during davening, whatever it may be. The blemish that this sin causes, we know sperm comes from the brain, directly from the brain. This is explained scientifically, it's explained in Jewish books as well. So it blemishes the brain. Now, when we blemish a certain part of the body, the blemish has, on the one hand, it blemishes that part of the body, the brain. But the brain is not just the brain for itself. The brain also has signals that take effect on the feet, on the hands,
Everywhere.
everywhere, exactly. So when a person is blemishing the brain, besides for blemishing the brain, he's also blemishing the hand that's in the brain, the foot that's in the brain, the heart that's in the brain, and etc. That's a second element of the effect of the sin. The third element of the effect of the sin is not just does the brain include the rest of the body inside of it, the rest of the body includes the brain as well. That means that in the foot, it has a link to the brain. That means there's a certain element of the brain that's in the foot. There's a certain element of the brain that's in the hand. There's a certain element of the brain that's in every part of the body.
Rabbi, you're
So
telling
there's
me-
so
you're
there's
telling
a
me that people are sitting on their brain.
so there's that threefold effect.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to correcting the blemish, in the actual organ that the sin is associated with, one set of fasts will clear it out. Why? Because there's a one-time damage that happens, and even if a person continues to sin, it doesn't intensify, at least significantly, the damage.
It's not cumulative.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful.
It's
gift,
a one.
Rabbi.
It's a
I'll take
one.
it.
It's a one-time thing, and therefore one set fasting,
It'd be 10 fasts. So.
whatever amount of fasts that is needed for that sin. Again, which today we don't do fasts. We redeem it with tzedakah. One time takes care of it. Now,
Isn't
in
it
terms,
Tikkun HaKlali is also supposed to be done. Well, if
Yeah,
according to which one
one second. In terms of the effect on the brain on the organ, the way the organ includes the rest of the body in it, every organ by the brain we see it very clearly. That's why we use this example of sperm and vein. By the brain we see very clearly that all of the organs are inside of it. So that's an effect that is accumulative. After 3 times the person sins, that's how the sin penetrates the other organs that are in that organ, like the hand and foot that's in the brain. How many times does it take for the sin to penetrate the entire organ, meaning to say the organ the way it includes the other organs? That's 3 times, and for that reason, there's an opinion that holds if you want to fix up that blemish, which is again more of a deeper blemish, that takes 3 times. But that's also only 3 times. 3 times you finish with it. Then you come to
So you're gonna suffer, you're gonna fast and suffer.
it.
No, you throw a couple of dollars, you're good to go.
Then you have the third element, which is the effect that the sin has on that organ, the way that organ is in the rest of the body. The brain, again, is not just in the head. The brain has effect on the hand,
Tendrils.
tendrils, correct? So that's something that every time a person sins,
It reinforces.
exactly, and that you see very clearly by sperm. Sperm, the Rambam Maimonides was a big doctor. He explains that this example is something that every time it happens, it weakens the body more and more. So it shows you, a lot of times we come with an attitude, let's say Shabbos. I already desecrated Shabbos once, the damage is done, nothing to do about it, finished, I'm a lost case. Maimonides comes and tells us, he talks about sperm, but that's the concept that every mitzvah. No, just because you did it once, don't say I'm going to continue doing it. It's something that every time we do it, like the brain, it affects more tendrils. Was that the word?
Tendrils.
Tendrils. More and more and more and more. And that's why when we're ready to return to fix this aspect, we're going to have to work on each time we did it. We'll summarize with the idea that tshuva, and then we're going to take questions. Summarize with the idea that tshuva, return, is something that takes no time. Tshuva has a meaning of turning. What does it mean, turning? Tshuva means ein ker, return, but the word of sha means to turn. The meaning of tshuva is when we take that turn and we tell God, God, I want to go in your ways. To explain this concept, we'll end up with a story, and again, then we're going to take the questions. There was a fellow which worked in the Israeli embassy. This story takes place, I believe, in the 1970s. There was two boys, Chabad students, came and they noticed in Manhattan, the Israeli embassy in Manhattan, I believe the story took place. Two Chabad students came to the embassy to visit the Jewish people there, to put on tefillin with them, to encourage them, and etc. They noticed that this fellow would always sit in his chair. He wouldn't be getting up. Most people would get up, show them, give them a cup of water.
Lazy guy.
They didn't think he was lazy. They didn't know what was behind it. But at a point, they asked him. It wasn't Holocaust, but they realized, he told them that he was crippled. I think it was from one of the wars. From
So he couldn't walk at all?
I don't know, he probably needed, I don't know, he came to work, he probably didn't stay there, but he was a walker, whatever he needed. I'm not sure what exactly he needed. They heard it from him, and they offered him to ask a bracha, a blessing from the Rebbe. And he wasn't religious, but he was believed in tzaddikim, and he was very happy. He said, sure, of course. They put a note, they asked a blessing for this fellow. And the Rebbe would answer usually in writing, short responses. I mean, your cousin got a long letter, but these kinds of questions, the Rebbe would write like one-liners on notes, little, like on side of papers. The Rebbe was very particular not to waste. And the Rebbe responded, keeping the code of Jewish law in day-to-day life. They looked at this, they're like, oh, shoot. How are we going to tell this to this person? This person is not observant. He wants a blessing, and the Rebbe is telling him to keep the code of Jewish law in day-to-day life. What is the code of Jewish law? I'm not sure how if you guys ever looked at it. It's a few books, one book, depending on which edition. It's
The Shulchan Aruch.
the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch has, the code of Jewish law has about 1,000 chapters. There's guidance for every step of life. How are we going to tell this to this person, to this fellow?
But it's a kitzur Shulchan Aruch. It's supposed to be
So-
abridged. It's supposed to be
Correct.
shortened.
So even if it's shortened, it tells us how to wake up, how to go to
The
sleep.
Shekinah? What did you call it?
Shulchan Aruch,
What is it?
code of Jewish law.
Okay, and that is found where?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's printed.
The Old
book.
Testament and
No.
spoken?
It's this is halacha. This is
Oh, the laws of
Who wrote it?
halacha.
yeah, halacha.
Who wrote the Shulchan Aruch?
Rabbi Yosef Karo. Let's just finish the story. So the yeshiva students are like, what are we going to tell this person to keep code of Jewish law? But they decided, look, this is what the Rebbe answers.
Yeah.
We're going to pass it over, and we'll see how our fellow in the embassy responds. And indeed, as they suspected, he's like, whoa, keeping the code of Jewish law in day-to-day life, that's much for me. I'm a beginner. He said, please ask the Rebbe if I can take it step by step.
You said obviously.
Question number 2.
So now they came back with question number 2. This fellow asked, the Rebbe told him to keep the code of Jewish law in day-to-day life. Can he take it step by step? The Rebbe answered, obviously, part of keeping the code of Jewish law is taking it step by step. That's the lesson we learn. Tshuva means deciding that we want to return to God. The fact that it's going to take us time, step by step, that's part of the process. Obviously, we want to do as much as we can,
Are you going to
but the
gym?
fact that we have to do everything does not mean that we have to collapse. Part of changing is step by step. What matters is, where are we headed? Where is our direction? May we be successful in this tremendous gift that God has given to us, that He accepts to return no matter how far a person goes, no matter how far he may be. God always welcomes us, and all we need to do is take that turn. That turn is the most significant step. That's what God looks at. The rest is details that we have to work on. But what we have to focus on this month, in general, particularly in this month, preparing for the high holidays, is to make that decision. God, I love you. I know you never gave up on me. I know you're ready, waiting for me to come home. And I am also ready. I want to take that step. And now help me practicalize and help me pull through with that decision. But I'm making that decision. God, I'm here. I'm coming back home. I want to be with you. Hopefully in the next weeks, we'll address more aspects of tshuva and touch more on Eliezer, what you brought up and what you brought up, David, as well. And